In the riverlands of southern Iraq and southwestern Iran, there survives a religion that most people have never heard of, even though it is connected to names known across the Abrahamic world. It is called Mandaeism, and its followers, the Mandaeans, revere figures such as Adam, Noah, Shem, and especially John the Baptist. Yet this is not Christianity, Judaism, or Islam in disguise. Mandaeism is usually described as Gnostic, dualistic, and ethnic, a faith built around sacred knowledge, a cosmic contrast between higher and lower realities, and a community identity passed down through generations. For outsiders, it can look mysterious because familiar names appear in unfamiliar roles. For Mandaeans themselves, it is a complete religious world of language, ritual, ancestry, and guarded tradition. The name Mandaeism comes from the Aramaic word manda, meaning knowledge. That is not a small detail, it points to the heart of the religion. Mandaeism is not only about accepting beliefs, but about preserving divine wisdom and transmitting a sacred understanding of reality. The Mandaeans speak Mandaic, an Eastern Aramaic language, which ties the community to one of the deep linguistic layers of the Middle East. Their central doctrine is also associated with Nerit, often understood as Nazarene Gnosis or divine wisdom. In this context, knowledge does not mean trivia or ordinary learning. It means a sacred orientation, knowing where the soul belongs, how ritual purity matters, and how the community remains connected to a higher order. One of the most distinctive features of Mandaeism is its list of revered prophetic figures. Mandaeans honor Adam, Abel, Seth, Enos, Noah, Shem, Aram, and above all John the Baptist. Adam is considered the founder of the religion, while John the Baptist is treated as the greatest and final prophet. This immediately challenges the usual way many viewers understand John. In Christianity, John is often remembered as the forerunner of Jesus. In Mandaeism, John is not a supporting figure in someone else's story. He stands at the center of reverence. This difference is crucial because it shows that Mandaeism uses familiar ancient names while arranging them inside a very different religious imagination. Because John the Baptist is so important, outsiders sometimes called the Mandaeans Christians of St. John. The label sounds understandable at first. They honor John, they are associated with baptism, and they come from a region where multiple Abrahamic traditions overlap. But the label is misleading. Mandaeans do not understand themselves as Christians, and they do not treat Jesus as the central redeemer of history. In fact, Mandaean tradition regards Jesus as a false prophet. That sharp difference is why the phrase Christians of St. John creates more confusion than clarity. It is an example of a common mistake, trying to explain a smaller religion only by squeezing it into the categories of larger, better-known religions. Mandaeans have also been known by other names, and each name reveals a different historical pressure. In the Middle East, outside their own community, they have often been called Abba, a term connected to an Aramaic root related to baptism. They have also been called Sabians, a name linked to a mysterious group mentioned in the Quran. The Quranic Sabians were implied to belong among the people of the book, a category that historically carried legal importance under Islamic rule. Because protected status could affect survival, several communities at different times claimed or were identified with the Sabian name. For the Mandaeans, these labels were not just academic terminology. Names could determine how neighbors, rulers, and legal systems treated them. To understand why water is so central to Mandaeism, look at where the religion historically lived. Its heartland was around the lower Karun, Euphrates, and Tigris rivers, especially the waterways surrounding the Shat al-Arab in southern Iraq and Khuzestan province in Iran. This geography was not incidental scenery. Rivers shaped the daily rhythm of life and the ritual imagination of the community. The association with baptism is so visible that it influenced outsider names for the Mandaeans. Flowing water was not simply a symbol placed on top of the religion, it was woven into where the community lived, how it practiced, and how it preserved continuity. Mandaeism is, in a very real sense, a river religion. The word Gnostic is often used for Mandaeism, but it needs to be handled carefully. In broad terms, Gnostic traditions emphasize hidden or divine knowledge, often connected to the soul's relationship with higher realities. Mandaeism also has a dualistic worldview, meaning it understands existence through powerful contrasts, such as purity and impurity, light and darkness, or the higher spiritual world and the flawed world below. But Mandaeism is not merely a set of philosophical ideas. It is a living ethnic religion. That means its beliefs are inseparable from community boundaries, inherited identity, ritual practice, and language. The sacred knowledge is preserved not by becoming universal and public, but by being carried carefully inside a distinct people. Inside the Mandaean community, sacred knowledge is also reflected in social and religious structure. The article distinguishes between Dharmadutta, the priesthood, and Mandaeutta, the laity. This division matters because rituals and teachings require trained guardians. A priesthood is not just a leadership class. In a private ritual tradition, it is a mechanism of survival. Priests preserve forms, language, and practices that could easily disappear if transmitted casually. The laity, meanwhile, sustain the broader community life in which the religion remains meaningful. Together, priesthood and laity form a living chain of memory. For a small religion surrounded by larger traditions, that internal structure helps explain how Mandaeism endured across centuries without becoming widely known. Mandaeans are known for having remained separate and intensely private. That privacy is one reason the outside world has often misunderstood them. Much of what outsiders learned historically came through travelers, diplomats, and scholars rather than through open self-presentation. Figures such as Julius Heinrich Petermann, Nicholas Sufi, and Lady E.S. Drower helped document aspects of the community, while an earlier account by the French traveler Jean-Baptiste Tavernier was highly prejudiced. This history of observation matters because when a private minority is mostly described by outsiders, distortions become almost inevitable. A name, a ritual, or a comparison can be taken as the whole truth, when in reality it is only one angle on a much deeper tradition. Until the Iraq War, almost all Mandaeans lived in Iraq. That concentration helped maintain community life, but it also made the religion extremely vulnerable to political disaster. After the 2003 invasion of Iraq and the subsequent occupation, rising turmoil and sectarian violence placed small minorities under severe pressure. For the Mandaeans, the consequences were dramatic. By 2007, estimates suggested that there were around 60,000 to 70,000 Mandaeans worldwide, but only about 5,000 remained in Iraq. This is not just a demographic footnote. It marks the transformation of a historically rooted river community into a scattered diaspora. A religion once anchored in specific waterways and neighborhoods suddenly had to survive across borders. Diaspora changes the meaning of survival. When a small ritual community leaves its homeland, it does not only lose territory. It risks losing the everyday environment that made tradition feel natural, language spoken at home, priests nearby, communal rituals in familiar waters, and children growing up surrounded by people who share the same sacred stories. Displacement can save lives while weakening cultural continuity. For Mandaeans, this creates a difficult modern challenge. How does a private, river-centered, Aramaic-speaking religion reproduce itself in countries where most neighbors know nothing about it? The answer depends on family transmission, community organization, religious leadership, and the ability to maintain identity without the old geographic foundation. Mandaeism matters because it complicates the simple maps we often use for religion. It reveres biblical figures, but it is not biblical religion in the usual sense. It honors John the Baptist, but it is not Christian. It is linked to baptism, but baptism here belongs to a distinct religious system. It has been called Mandaean, Nazorian, Sabian, Gnostic, and Ubba, but no single label captures everything. At its core is a community built around knowledge, ritual purity, inherited identity, and the memory of sacred rivers. Its story is ancient, but its crisis is modern. Mandaeism survives as one of the world's rare religious traditions that is both deeply old and painfully fragile. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.